Hello and welcome back to the channel as we pick our favourite 5 budget long-range EVs for 2022. Now, when we say budget, it doesn't necessarily mean the cheapest. We're just talking about EVs that we think are going to be affordable for lots of people and will be bought in good numbers. And we haven't just pulled up a list of the longest range vehicles. We've factored in things like price, functionality, and desirability. Now, I can't imagine everyone's going to agree with this list, so watch to the very end, watch the cars we've picked out, and then let us know in the comments below what you think. My name is Martin Lee, and if you like what we do here, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss a show. So first up, and in no particular order, this is a car that I had for 3 months on my driveway in 2021, and one that I've reviewed on this channel before, the Hyundai Kona. It's an oldie, but a goodie, and recently refreshed. We'd love to include the newer Ioniq 5 or Kia EV6 on the new bespoke eGMP platform, but truth be told, not that amazed actually by their efficiency compared to the older generation, and they're a lot more expensive as well. The Kona has an advertised range of just under 300 miles, but the amazing thing is the efficiency of the Hyundai Kona, even at highway speeds. At 64 kilowatt hours usable, it's far from the biggest battery out there, but it still gets up there with the big boys in terms of range. It's smaller and lighter, and we've heard of some Kona drivers getting 350 miles a charge in city driving. You also have to factor in the price. Sure, the Kona isn't quite as desirable, fast or quick charging as some of the competition, but it's also under a third of the price of some of them. It's got 11 kilowatts AC onboard charging, DC charging around the mid-70s, not setting the world alight, but it'll do nicely for many people. Next up, some serious value for money, but not if you live in the US. We've reviewed the MG ZS EV on this channel already, and it's got a great reception, and that video is getting loads of views as well, so I can tell people are interested. Now, Blake had it for a few days, put a few hundred miles on it, and he was amazed at the range. This is the refreshed 73.6 kilowatt hour battery, 68 usable, and good for, I reckon, about 275 miles of range. It'll easily do that in the summer, maybe 300 miles or more on a good day. In winter, all right, on the highway, 200 miles. And we don't think that people buying this car will be doing so many road trips across continents, but the range is fantastic for the price point. Depending on the market you're in. The ZS EV will charge at 7 or 11 kilowatts on AC, peaking around 76 kilowatts on DC fast charging, so not as effective on a long trip as a Model 3 long range, but it's half the price. And now onto a car that I hold dear in my heart. I've had 2 of them over the years, the Zoe. Doesn't hit the top of the list in terms of desirability anymore. Some would say getting a little long in the tooth, but for us it represents really good value in terms of range per pound or range per dollar and euro spent. Although with the likes of the MG and the Aura Cat on the way, that is being challenged. You can get the entry-level Zoe ZE50, which has a usable capacity of 52 kilowatt hours for well under £30,000 in the UK, or 30,000 euros. For that, you get real-world range of 200 miles, but the Zoe will probably be bought for city and extra urban driving. It's nice as well. I like that car. The new one, in good conditions, will look to get maybe 300 miles in the summer around the city. As for charging, it's a mixed bag. DC has always been Zoe's weakness, but it shines on AC. Now, this might mean that to you, the 22 kilowatt AC charging is really useful, but in its home market of France, there are so many 22 kilowatt AC posts out there, and around here as well, that it's so useful to have that speed. You can go from 5% to full in the time it takes you to see a movie, have dinner with a friend. We We had to think about this one hard considering the troubles the Bolt and the EUV have had in 2021. As I'm writing this, production is still at a standstill, but going to trust that the issues are fully resolved and the Bolt hits some nice numbers again. Apart from a few examples badged as an Opal, we didn't get the Bolt over here in Europe, but it's been a mainstay in the US and beyond for years. But for 2022, we're looking at the refreshed, sharper looking car. 200 horsepower, 11.5 kilowatt level 2 AC charging, EPA range of, we think, 260 miles from 65 kilowatt hours usable in the battery. But it's the price that will draw a lot of people in. The Bolt starting at just above $30,000. Add in incentives and dealer discounts, and you're onto a winner. Next up, we're in Germany. The VW ID3 has kind of been forgotten about a little bit since the bigger brother ID4 came out and hit some really big numbers. But it's always been on our radar. Sure, it's had a few quirks and annoyances at the beginning with the software, but I still think there's serious value in there. I've had an ID3 for 2 months in 2021, and I loved it. Since we're talking about range today, we're looking at the Pro S with a 77 kilowatt hour usable battery. Not as efficient as all of its rivals, but not expecting it to be considering the interior space and the battery weights in this as well. The Pro S has a WLTP range of 345 miles, which is impressive. Real world range around 300, depending on the time of year and how you drive it. In summer, around the city, 400 miles on this car. And the ID3 charges at a decent rate, 11 kilowatts on AC, 135 kilowatts on DC when it gets its over-the-air update to enable that faster DC charging. Doesn't sound as impressive as an EV6 at 230 kilowatts, but then again, the ID3 has a really decent charging curve, and it'll be a few years before we start to see 350 kilowatt chargers in significant numbers anyway. Depending on whether you're an uber Tesla fan, you could say we're saving the best until last, including a Tesla, as we put the Model 3 long range into our list. It wasn't luxurious enough to make our ultimate list, a separate video that we've done, so we put it in the budget list, even though it's pricey. Bear with me. Obviously the Model S is the king of the highway, but the Model 3 is just that bit more efficient and a whole lot cheaper. Now it gets tricky with the Model 3 because depending on when and where you bought it, you're going to have a different battery. So we're looking at the Model 3 with the 76 kilowatt hour usable pack stuffed with the Panasonic cells. We just love the long range version. I prefer it to the performance actually, because the long range still has loads of performance. You get all of that range and you get blistering pace, 340 kilowatts of motors, 0 to 62 miles an hour, 4.4 seconds. That's quick enough for me. WLTP range rating just shy of 400 miles, but that is really optimistic. Treat it really nicely in the summer and you'll get over 400. But in winter conditions at highway speeds, Model 3 long range, clearing 250 miles, and that gets you past so many supercharging stations. It's all you need. But what elevates the Tesla here is not just its range, it's getting the car back on the road in a long trip. On AC, 11 kilowatts. That's good, but not great. But on DC, with the supercharging network, V3 stalls, and peak rates of 250 kilowatts, it's so easy to drive this vehicle for long distances. So we've used the term budget a little loosely with some of our cars, but it was all about range, and you have to spend a bit to get a bit. It's amazing to look at the options today compared to just a couple of years ago, and it's so exciting to think where we'll be by the middle of the decade in 3 years' time. Thank you so much for watching today. Now you've seen our list, let us know what you think in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you, wherever you're watching around the world. Did we get the list right? There's no way everyone's going to agree completely, but did we miss something off? Is there something on the list that you wouldn't have? Let us know in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. It tells us to make more like this one. And we'll see you on the next one.